Hey, everybody. Let's see what the political temperature is in the villages this week. To the editor, I'd love to know who the triggered Harris Walsh supporter is that stole our Trump 2024 Take America Back Again magnet off the back of our golf cart yesterday. I would have just given it to you if you asked. I have plenty of them. Hey, give me one. I know it wasn't a MAGA supporter because we don't steal from others. Does it bother you people so much where you have to destroy or steal other people's property just because they don't agree with you? How sad and pathetic you must be to resort to stealing a magnet at your age because you don't like the message. That's sent in by James Anderson from the village of Rio Grande. Thank you, James. I only say one thing about it. I don't really care what political party you are. Most people really don't care. It's only just a small few. But you realize that's theft. And whether you agree or don't agree with somebody's right to express their opinions about anything, it's theft. And if you've been caught and if he wanted to file charges on you, you could go to jail. You'd have to go in front of a judge. And then he would probably put you on probation for 6 months or whatever he decides to do. But the point is, at your age, you'll now have a criminal record that will follow you for the rest of your life. And for what? For what? Are you kidding me? That's a sad state of affairs, and that just shows me that some people's mentality around here has really sunk to an all-time low. I'm trying to pick the ones that I can read and then maybe make a little comment on of my own. All these comments are just me, my personal opinion about things, the way I see it. I try to take the middle of the road. But some of these comments to the editor, man, I think some of you people need to get a job. They're like a book. To the editor, after reading and hearing about the election, I need to say that as a lifelong union member and lifelong Democrat, I find it hard to vote for my party's nomination process and the jamming down my throat a nominee that has not run in any primary, hid Biden's mental decline, and fumbled through every friendly interview she has ever had. The Democratic Party is not the party it once was. I can't vote for her. They talk about democracy, but don't follow through with it. I believe this was the plan all along. That's why they scheduled the early debate to show Biden as an incompetent fool. I think that's a bit rough. Everybody knows he's got dementia or something, so to call a guy dementia a fool because he can't talk right or can't think right, would you say that to somebody that in your family that had dementia and was in at home? And so I don't think that's very nice. I'll put it that way. All the media and so-called true Americans called for his ouster. The policies of Biden-Harris over the past 3.5 years have driven us down to everything they've used. The political pundits have jumped all over it. She has no policies or plans. And the bozos she has teamed up with in a heartbeat from the White House scares me to death. She's flip-flopped on every issue. So I can't believe anyone could cast their ballot for her or the swamp. That's sent in by Jack Mellon, village of Della Vista. Well, the only comment I can make about that is they both have done that. She's flip-flopped on a lot, so is he. People are always going to say, they use this all the time, and let me be the first person to correct people. If you're going to accuse somebody of something or try to entice somebody to vote for somebody else, quit calling Trump a convicted felon. He's not. Maybe you people don't understand the difference of being found guilty and then being convicted. He has never been convicted of anything. He has been found guilty, yes. I think that's all under appeal. I don't keep up with the law of this, so I'll excuse myself on that. Like everybody has the right to do this. Most of everything, when he appealed it, it's been thrown out. That's all I can tell you. So is he a convicted felon? The answer to that is no. Has he been found guilty of some felony charges? The answer to that is yes. So my point is, you can't point the finger in one direction here. They're both guilty of something. Oh, this one's like a book. I may have to kind of skip on this one. To the editor, we all have learned how firmly entrenched the mega movement is in the Republican Party. But because of our age group here in the villages, surely there are some moderate Republicans who have some distaste but vote for Trump merely out of the party loyalty as Republicans. I'm sure that's true. Once again, I'm sure that's true on the Democratic side also, isn't it? Why you vote Democratic? Well, my parents has always voted Democratic, so do I. So you can't point the finger, once again, one way or the other. Why then wouldn't they be moved by the hundreds of prominent conservative Republicans and former administration cabinet members, staff, senior military, and security officials who have come forward in recent weeks warning that Trump is unfit to be president? Since when does anybody have the fortitude to declare anybody to be fit or unfit of anything? Except maybe a doctor or psychiatrist. What about the 700 plus members of the group National Security Leaders of America, which included former ambassadors, secretaries of state, and defense and retired generals? They state where Trump is impulsive and all-informed, Vice President Harris is strategic and prepared. Only thing I can say about any of that is, how do you know any of that's true? I get so tired of people acting like they know everything, and then they try to convince you should see things the way they see it because they know it all. Both groups consider Trump a threat. There we are with that threat again. The poor guy was shot at once, almost hit, and then they caught a second guy that was going to do the same thing, but they got him. All because of language like this. You're brainwashed. You got to quit listening to that Democratic derelict stuff. He's a threat to democracy. There's nobody a threat to democracy. Nobody. That's all political crap. It's kind of like here in the Villages, Florida's friendliest hometown. There's no such thing. That's just a way to sell houses. That is not anything that the state declared. That is not an award that this place got. That's just a developer and his companies came up with that phrase to sell houses. That's it. Well, this so-called threat to democracy, it's been working all this time, but they made it up. I say, vote with your heart, vote with your mind, vote with your common sense, vote with your gut feeling, and quit listening to all this rhetoric. These are people who know Trump, and many worked with him in the White House. Virtually none of the megas here in the Villages know Trump or ever met him. I know him and knew his father. They were and are con men and unethical business people. I even had to get Fred Trump out of jail once back in 1976 at Donald's plea to me. True. Google Fred Trump, jail, 1976. Why not believe the hundreds and hundreds of conservative Republicans being patriotic and putting our nation's safety and security first and country above the party? They know Trump. You do not. Trust them and believe them. Vote Harrison Walz as patriots. That's him by William Backett from the village of Sanibel. Well, I will say one thing, William. You wrote a lot. I'm sorry. I'm not one of them people to swallow stuff just because other people say, I know, I personally know. And to the editor, I normally don't bother with anything the former president says, but while campaigning in Georgia, he's telling people that the Republican governor of Georgia couldn't get the president to call him about hurricane relief. Which then the Republican governor had to take time at his press conference on TV to say, that's wrong. And the president had called him and I asked him not to come for a couple of days and that we were doing okay and had what we needed. Another example that if the former president was moving his lips, you know you need to fact check it. That's it in from Charles Osgood from the village of Buttonwood. There's one thing that I've learned about some of these old duffers down here, a lot of them anyway. Don't confuse them with the facts. They've already made up their mind. To the editor, the federal government is too big. I think we all agree with that. It is so big and unwieldy that I cannot actually tell us how big it is. It simply doesn't know. The Brookings Institute estimates that the federal government employs about 11 million direct and contracted employees. The Congressional Budget Office seems to have a handle on how many direct payroll employees there are, but they confess that they do not know how many contracted and grant employees really work for the government. Brookings Institute estimates that there are over 6 million of the total federal employee workforce is contracted or paid for with federal grants. Over half of these contract grant people are working for the Department of Defense. Most federal employees cannot be fired because politicians negotiated sweetheart civil service and public union contracts with them by literally giving them contract rewards and benefits, albeit with our taxpayers' money in exchange for their voting loyalty. There should be fewer employees, a smaller government, less spending, lower taxes, fewer taxes, and enforceable government employee fiscal accountability. I'll go along with that last part there about accountability. That's the reason why they do what they do, because there's really no accountability for them. A good start will be laws with mandatory penalties that dock bureaucrats and politicians' paychecks under specific erogenous money-wasting circumstances. Applying reasonable term limits to most politicians and some bureaucrats would help as well. After all is said and done, they are wasting our money, not theirs. Sent in by Robert Moore Sr. from the village of Rio Grande. I agree with 90% of what you say there, except one. And I understand the point, and I'm not trying to start any kind of an argument. I don't agree with these saying term limits, and I'll tell you why. It's discriminatory. You don't want them to discriminate against you, but yet you want them to pass a law that discriminates against them. How can you give mandatory term limits because of age? That's age discrimination, which we're not supposed to have, but we do. To the editor, from the time of the ancient Greeks until today, there are certain values that leaders are expected to have and lead by. One is honesty, another is respect. Donald Trump has neither of these, along with other leadership values he should have to be leader of the world's leading nation. Let me stop right there. Honesty. So you tell me, which president in your lifetime do you remember being totally honest? Which one? I want to know. I'll tell you, I'm 72. There's none. They're all lying. Every one of them's lying. And if you think one side lies and the other one don't, you live in a fabricated world. Respect. That goes a long way, you know. Some people will respect people for one reason or another. Other people will not respect that same person for different reasons. So that's neither here nor there. We're talking about a world leader here. We're not talking about people respecting him or anything. We're talking about a guy or a girl, whoever it happens to be, protects our borders, protects the people that's here, protects our way of life. And if it takes a guy to get tough with another nation, even with a threat, then that's just what we got to do. Let's start with honesty. In his 4 years as president, he lied over 31,000 times, according to the fact checkers. Who's the fact checkers? I don't trust any of them people at all. I want to know who they are. It's just like polls. People take these polls. Who does the poll? I want to know who does the poll. And who did they poll? That's almost 8,000 times a year. Or to break it, I want to know who counted. That's almost 8,000 times a year, and to break it down even farther, 21 times a day. Think about that. If a CEO, your boss, a fellow worker, a family member did that, what would happen? So you think your boss tells you the truth 100 times? I work for UPS. You want to talk to me about this? To the CEO, a good chance his business would fail and he would be fired. Your boss, either workers would quit, grievances filed, and no one would want to work for him. A family member or friend, you would disown them. Nah, you don't disown family. Not on something like this. Say you're wanting to disown family members because of politics? That tells me a lot about you. So can everyone explain to me how people accept every lie Trump utters? Well, first of all, we don't know what he lied. We know there's been some things said that was not true. Yes, on both sides. Is it if the lie is repeated often enough, they accept it? You know, that is true to some point. If you repeat a lie enough, people believe it. The lying hasn't stopped. Over 500 times, he has claimed the election of 2020 was rigged. Well, it may have been. You don't know that it ain't. You're just listening to one side. I listen to both sides. I'm saying there could be a reason. There could be some evidence to this. But on the other side, there's some evidence that doesn't show that. I don't know. I'm not on the inside looking out. I'm on the outside looking in. 60 court cases say otherwise. He has made lies about immigrants, foreign leaders, federal and state officials, and the current president, vice president, and Democratic vice president candidate. There are plenty of other lies he has used in court cases, interviews, and speeches, but you get the idea. No, I really don't get the idea, other than the fact that you are showing a lot of hatred. He lost the popular vote in 2016, gaining the presidency by the electoral vote. If he did, then that's our system. That's the way it works. He has derogatory names for media networks and reporters and foreign leaders he doesn't like, and every one of them's true. Fake news. You see it every day. It's so bad that some of the big-time news people that used to work for Fox, CNN, and all, they've left the channels and started their own YouTube channels for the news. And if they don't stop it, the news on TV is going to be dead. People like me and you, we're not going to watch the news there anymore because we know we can't trust it. If you go to Fox News to get political reports, you know what they're going to say and how they're going to do it. You saw it on ABC during the presidential debate, how one-sided that was. And if you say you didn't see that, you're just turning a blind eye on purpose because we all saw it. But to me, the worst is over the last few days, calling Vice President Harris mentally retarded and Vice President candidate Governor Tim Walz a moron. Why veterans, Republicans, villagers, and MAGA members believe he should be elected is beyond me. I'm sure the family members of the million-plus Americans who died over COVID may agree with me. Please consider these facts before casting your vote. That's sent by Ray Dube, Hacienda, Mission Hills. Well, getting into the COVID thing, Trump pushed the idea of finding out where the COVID actually started. We know it started in China, but then nobody else would follow through with it. Till this day, nobody's ever followed through with it. And there's been a lot of people on the Hill that keeps bringing it up. Who won? And we're sending the money still this day. Sometimes I think America as a country, we have just turned stupid, or we're being manipulated by other countries. I'm not too sure about all that. But I will say this. Stop the hate. Vote for whoever you want. I wish the movie stars would go back doing what they do best. Go back to acting. I wish that the rock people, the musician people would do what they do best. Go back to making music. And leave the American people alone with their mind, their conscience, their soul, and let them vote for whoever they want, with no disrespect from anybody, including these writers to the editor. There's more disrespect in these letters than there are on any of the political campaign trails. Let them fight it out. Let them duke it out. You know, this is just like the boxing matches when Muhammad Ali came on there before the match. He would say what he had to say. And they'd go to the other side, and that guy would say all the nasty stuff he had to say about Muhammad Ali. You know, we didn't get involved with any of that, so why do we get involved with this? It'll always come out okay, because that's the way our democracy is set up. And may I say just one thing again, there is no threat to the American democracy. So with that, God bless America, and God bless the American voter.